Well, howdy everyone. Or, as I usually say, yokoso owashitare. Welcome back to another one of these explaining classical Japanese through video games, and today specifically we're going to be dealing with another Genshin character, the queen of classical poetry herself.
Minasuma Kamisato Ryu Tachijutsu Menkyo Kaiden Kamisato Ayaka Mairimasu Yoroshiku onegai shimasu ne.
Yes, I actually am a big fan of Ayaka. I have her, personally. She's great, does a lot of damage. Wonderful. However, what I'm most interested in is this poem that she says right here.
この雪の毛残る時にいざゆかな山立花の実のてるもみん.
Now, the preamble to this poem is this comes from the Manyoshu, which was the first imperial anthology of poetry compiled in the Nara period a long time ago. It's not the most prestigious of imperial anthologies, but it is up there, being the first. Now, the other thing about the Manyoshu is this was written long before they had developed hiragana or katakana, or rather kana is what they had. And so they had to use exclusively Chinese characters to express the Japanese language. And if you know anything about Japanese and Chinese, although there are a lot of Chinese loanwords in Japanese, they are linguistically completely different languages, so there's some problems when you try to express Japanese using only Chinese characters, which are meant to express the Chinese language. But one way or another, they managed to get around that. And the thing about these poems, some people consider them to be really good expressions of a native Japanese spirit, being as old as they actually are. And even though they use the Chinese characters to express their language, it is exclusively Japanese that they use. There are no actual Chinese loanwords in the poetry. But anyway, enough about that. Let's actually get into the poetry. So as you can see on the screen here, we have the modernized version of this poem. And just to go over it one more time. この雪の毛残る時にいざゆかな山立花の実のてるもみん. So let's break this down real quick. Kono. This is a kono. If you know modern Japanese, you know what this kono is. It means this. This or these. The things right in front of us or at the present. And then we have yuki, which means snow. So this snow. And then we have this following no. Now, this is not the modern Japanese no. This is the ancient Japanese no, which functions like the modern Japanese wa or ga. And for those of you who don't speak Japanese, this is the thing that marks the subject of the sentence, okay? Because in a sentence, you have the thing that does the stuff that is done, and then the thing that the stuff is done to. So, for example, dog eats food. We have the dog that does the thing, we have the eat, which is the thing that's happening, and then we have the food, which is being eaten, is having the thing done to it, okay? This no denotes dog. So in classical Japanese, they would say, if they wanted to say a dog eats food, they would say, inu no monoku is how they would say it classically. So this no means that. This is the subject of the sentence. And then the action that follows, ke no koru. Now this is actually a combination of two words. And it actually seems a little bit, paradoxical. Because this first kanji means to disappear, to go away, to be deleted, to disappear. And then it is followed by, and that's pronounced ke in this instance, and then it's followed by this verb nokoru, which means to remain. So we've got disappear and remain, okay? And when you combine those two, essentially what you get is you get the remaining. Most of the stuff, whatever we're talking about, has disappeared, but there is a little bit remaining. And so with this snow, ke nokoru, this snow remaining. So you can already have this image in your head of we have a winter wonderland that has largely disappeared. However, there is still some snow clinging on. And then the thing about this is this nokoru is put into the attributive form. And what does that mean? The attributive form simply means that it is describing a noun that comes after it. So technically, the yuki is not the subject of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is this toki. Toki means time. And in modern Japanese, this works the same. When you want to say when, like how we would say English when, so when you eat food or when you go to the store, what they use is instead, they say the verb toki. So when you eat food, anata ga taberu toki, or when you go to the store, あなたが店に行く時. Okay? So this is この雪の毛残る時. Basically means when the snow still remains, or while the snow still remains in this instance. And then that is followed by this ni that denotes time or place or direction sometimes. Basically, this is a particle that denotes, well, time or place or direction. It's supposed to follow something like this with the time. It is saying at this time. And then we have a really interesting thing here. Iza, okay? And iza is a very old way of inviting somebody to do something. You'll see this in like samurai films a lot of the time. They'll say, Iza jinjou ni shobu, which means, come, let us have a fair duel. I know Genji says Iza jinjou ni shobu a lot, but they said it all the time in classical Japanese. Iza tamae means, please do this thing for me. It's an invitation and it's trying to get somebody to do something. So going over it one more time, we have this snow, so kono yuki no, this snow, ke nokoru toki ni, when still slightly remains, okay? Iza, come, let us do this thing, or let's whatever. And then we have yukana. Now this is a conjugation that I am not familiar with. I am mostly familiar with what is technically classical Japanese, and this is technically not quite classical Japanese. This is actually a little bit older. Classical Japanese is the Japanese that was very popular and spoken by the aristocracy in the Heian period, perhaps 100 years or so after this. And so occasionally when you're dealing with the Manyoshu, or you're dealing with the really old texts like the Kojiki or the Nihon Shoki or something like that, I will run into grammar patterns that I am not familiar with, and this is one of them. However, it's pretty clear what he is trying to say here, where we have this iza, which means let's do whatever, and then yuku means to go, and then yukana is, in classical Japanese, kana is like an exclamatory thing. It's like whoa, amazing. And so we can kind of piece together that what this iza yukana means is something like let's go. Let's go. I mean, that's really all there is to say. So, kono yuki no ke nokoru toki ni iza yukana. So let's go while the snow still remains. And then we have Yama Tachibana. So Yama means mountain, and Tachibana is a type of a plant, I believe. It's a type of a flower. But a Yama Tachibana, so you have the Tachibana, and then you have the mountain Tachibana, which is a special kind of plant. And I had to look this up, but it's a very small evergreen plant. It never actually sheds its leaves, but it bears this really, really vibrant red fruit. These tiny little red berries that you can imagine if the snow is still sticking around and these berries are out, they will pop out. They will be amazingly colorful. So from Yama Tachibana, no, and now this no actually is the no that you are familiar with if you know modern Japanese. It's a possessive thing. It kind of means of. And what is it saying of? Mi. This mi means fruit. So Yama Tachibana is this plant, okay? And then no of mi, fruit. Now, in Japanese, they reverse it how we would translate it in English. So in English, we would say the fruit of Yama Tachibana, okay? So the fruit of this plant. But what they say is they say this plant of fruit. They have it reversed. Don't ask me why, that's just how they do it. And then the mi is followed by, again, that no that we saw, which denotes the subject of the sentence, the thing that is doing whatever action that follows. And the action that it is doing is teru. Teru means to shine, to radiate, I guess you could say. The main goddess of the Japanese pantheon, Amaterasu, literally her name means heaven shining. And this comes from that the Amaterasu, terasu, is another version of this verb, whereas this version, teru, just means to shine. And then, if you're familiar with the previous videos on classical Japanese, you'll see this mo here, and you should understand that in between this teru and this mo, there's supposed to be some kind of a noun. However, because it's classical Japanese, if you can basically guess as to what it is, a lot of times they don't say it. So what would be appropriate in between this teru and this mo would be something like a koto. koto literally means thing, but you can use it to make a verb a noun. So like, for example, what we could do is Yama Tachibana no mi no teru means the fruit of the Yama Tachibana shines. However, if you have Yama Tachibana no mi no teru koto, it means the shining of the fruit of the Yama Tachibana. However, they don't put the koto there. They just put the particle that's supposed to follow the koto, which means even or at least. Okay? So to refresh the whole thing, so kono yuki no ke no koru toki ni, so while the snow still remains, iza yukana, let us go. Yama Tachibana no mi no teru mo, so the shining of the fruit of the Yama Tachibana, at least that, mim. So this mi right here means to see, and then it is conjugated into this mu ending, which denotes intention, volition, a desire to do a thing. Like, I am going to do this. This is my intention. I am actively engaged in whatever the verb is. So, putting it all together now. Kono yuki no, this snow, ke no koru toki ni, while it remains, iza yukana, let us go. Yama Tachibana no, of the Yama Tachibana, mi no teru mo, the shining of the fruit of the Yama Tachibana, mim, let us see, or I want to see, I'm going to see. And for those of you who are really advanced in Japanese, if any of you are watching, if you want to see how it was actually written, this right here. Okay? Some of you who are very well versed in kanji might look at this and go, what the heck? But yeah, kono yuki no. So let's do this. Kono yuki no ke no koru toki. And then this is the particle ni. Iza yu kana. Or is it? No, this should be iza yu kana. I wonder. Yama Tachibana no mi no teru, and then this mo is the particle, and then mimu. So, however, because this is a little left over from Chinese, the way the Chinese would write intention to do verb would be with this kanji, which you might know as the sho from shogun, and then the mi, which means to see, right? So this is for the advanced people. So look at that. If you can make sense of that, great on you. I probably wouldn't have been able to get that if I didn't already know what this poem was. Now, a little bit about this poem. As far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of deeper significance behind it. It was written by an aristocrat by the name of Otomo no Yakamochi, and apparently at the time he was serving out way in the provinces somewhere very, very far away from the capital, and as the snow had disappeared, he wanted to go see these red berries gleaming in the snow. And so what does this have to do with Ayaka? Well, she says this whenever you go to Dragonspine and it's snowing. And that's where I first noticed it, because I would go to Dragonspine and then she would suddenly go into this quote, and I recognized it as a poem and I recognized it as an old poem. So of course I had to look that up. And wouldn't you know, she's celebrating being in the snow, and she's also hinting at what she would like to do, presumably with you, the traveler. Also, if I wanted to put my little literary analysis hat on, I could say that this might be something to the effect of looking for the good, looking for the colorful in the dark cold of winter. Or you could also interpret it in a classical Japanese way where the snow is about to disappear and we really want to see this sight of the stark red against the pure white. However, we don't have much time because everything is transient and in flux and it's going to disappear. And we can't cling to it because that's what causes us suffering, but we can't help but do it because it's so beautiful. Oh. So, and I'm sure there are many of you guys in the audience who could probably interpret this in a plethora of different ways, who probably might get more out of it than I will. So I'll leave it to you. Thirsty. Mugicha. Bottoms up. Anyway, that's pretty much this poem. Now, as far as I can tell, Ayaka has two other poems. Well, rather, she has one other poem that she actually quotes and one poem that she references. And I want to go over both of those, but I would like to give them all their own separate videos so it doesn't end up becoming too long, because this is already probably too long. But I wanted to start with this because she is the queen of ice and snow, and it's very fitting that she would quote a poem about snow. It's very beautiful, very appropriate. But again, if you noticed any other connections, please let me know in the comments. And if you did like hearing more about classical Japanese, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel too, because not only am I going to have more Ayaka poems coming out in the future, but also every week I tell a story from an ancient collection of classical Japanese folk tales. And so if you want to be here for that, I put up a new video every week. Again, please subscribe. And hopefully you found this enjoyable, you learned something, and go out, play Genshin, and enjoy Ayaka because she's amazing and great and wonderful, and I love her. Anyways, that's going to be it for now. Goodbye, guys.